These aren't just niceties. I make no apology for demanding, in your name, in the name of the Constitution, that the rights to due process guaranteed under the Constitution are adhered to in a process as serious as this in our national lives.
What's up, Patriots? Welcome back. If you just caught that snippet, then you already know we're about to dive into something intense. Today, we're breaking down a moment from the impeachment trial where David Schoen, representing Donald Trump, went straight at the heart of the Democrat narrative and didn't hold back. Take a second and picture the room, the expressions, the tension, and then silence. Not just any silence, but that heavy, uncomfortable kind. The kind that hits when something lands hard and no one has an immediate response. According to Schoen's argument, that moment wasn't accidental. It was the result of him doing something he claims doesn't happen enough, bringing actual evidence into the spotlight. For years, figures like Adam Schiff have framed the entire situation as a defense of democracy. That's been the headline, the talking point, the repeated message. But what Schoen is suggesting flips that narrative completely. He argues this wasn't really about the events of January 6th. It was something deeper, something that had been building for years. In his words, it was an ongoing fixation, not about protecting institutions, but about overturning a result that some simply couldn't accept. That's a serious claim, and a controversial one, because if true, it changes how the entire situation is viewed. Instead of a reaction to a single event, it becomes part of a much larger political battle that's been simmering for a long time. So now the question is, what actually holds up when you look closely? What's rhetoric and what's reality? Let's get into the full clip and break down exactly how this impeachment came together and why moments like this are still sparking debate today.
The denial of due process in this case, of course, starts with the House of Representatives. In this unprecedented snap impeachment process, the House of Representatives denied every attribute of fundamental constitutional due process that Americans correctly have come to believe is part of what makes this country so great. How and why did that happen? It is a function of the insatiable lust for impeachment in the House for the past 4 years. Consider this.
I want to say this for Donald Trump, who I may well be voting to impeach.
Donald Trump has already done a number of things which legitimately raise the question of impeachment.
I don't respect this president, and I will fight every day until he is impeached.
That is grounds to start impeachment proceedings. Those are grounds to start impeachment. Those are grounds to start impeachment proceedings. Yes, I think that's grounds to start impeachment proceedings.
I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to call for the impeachment of the President of the United States of America.
I continue to say, impeach him! Impeach 45! Impeach 45!
So we're calling upon the House to begin impeachment hearings immediately.
On the impeachment of Donald Trump, would you vote yes or no?
I would vote yes. I would vote to impeach.
Because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the motherfucker.
But the fact is, I introduced articles of impeachment in July of 2017.
If we don't impeach this president, he will get reelected.
My oath requires me to be for impeachment, have an impeachment hearing. He needs the scarlet eye on his chest.
The representatives should begin impeachment proceedings against this president.
It is time to bring impeachment charges against him. Bring impeachment charges.
My personal view is that he richly deserves impeachment.
I'm here at an impeachment rally, and we are ready to impeach the...
The relevant timeline in the House reveals the rush to judgment. On the day following the January 6th riot, the House leadership cynically sensed a political opportunity to score points against the outgoing then-President Trump. And the Speaker demanded that Vice President Pence invoke the 25th Amendment, threatening immediate impeachment for the President if Mr. Pence did not comply with this extraordinary and extraordinarily wrong demand. 4 days later, on January 11th, 2021, the instant article of impeachment was introduced in the House. Speaker Pelosi then gave the Vice President another ultimatum, threatening to begin impeachment proceedings within 24 hours if he did not comply. Vice President Pence rejected Speaker Pelosi's demand, favoring instead adherence to the Constitution and the best interests of the nation over a politically motivated threat. On January 12th, Speaker Pelosi announced who the 9 impeachment managers would be, and on January 13th, 2021, just days after holding a press conference to announce the launching of an inquiry, the House adopted the article of impeachment, completing the fastest impeachment inquiry in history and according President Trump no due process at all, over strong opposition based in large part on the complete lack of due process. To say there was a rush to judgment by the House would be a grave understatement. It is not as if the House members who voted to impeach were not mightily warned about the dangers to the institution of the presidency and about our system and to our system of due process. They were warned in the strongest of terms from within their own ranks, adamantly, clearly, and in no uncertain terms, not to take this dangerous snap impeachment course. Those warnings were framed in the context of the constitutional due process that was denied here. Consider the warnings given by one member during the House proceedings, pleading with the other members to accord this decision the due process the Constitution demands. This is Representative Cole of Oklahoma. With only 1 week to go in his term, the majority is asking us to consider a resolution impeaching President Trump. And they do so knowing full well that even if the House passes the resolution, the Senate will not be able to begin considering these charges until after President Trump's term ends. I can think of no action the House can take that is more likely to further divide the American people than the action we are contemplating today.
Unbelievable. Just wow. Did you catch that montage? Because if you did, then you already know. That's where things get really intense. Let's slow it down and talk about the timeline, because this is exactly where David Schoen builds his entire argument, and where he claims the narrative starts to fall apart. He kicks things off with a concept that sounds technical, but is actually simple: due process. In plain terms, it just means fairness. The idea that before you make a serious accusation, especially one this big, you take the time to investigate, hear both sides, and follow a fair procedure. Schoen's argument is that this principle was ignored right from the start. He points the finger at figures like Adam Schiff and others, claiming the process was rushed, what he describes as a snap impeachment. No extended investigation, no drawn-out hearings, just a fast-moving political response. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's the foundation he's building on. But then comes the moment that really grabs attention: the montage itself. Names start popping up: Jamie Raskin, Maxine Waters, Al Green. And the timeline? Early 2017, right at the beginning of Donald Trump's presidency. The argument being made here is that calls for impeachment didn't suddenly appear. They were there from the very start. Schoen uses that to push a bigger point. This wasn't just about one event. In his view, it was part of a long-running effort, fueled by political opposition and concern over future elections. Then more names enter the conversation: Jerry Nadler and Rashida Tlaib, with rhetoric that, depending on your perspective, either reflects strong political conviction or deep division. Schoen frames it as part of a continuous pattern over several years. And then we get to the critical turning point: the events following January 6th. According to this argument, the timeline becomes even more compressed. Nancy Pelosi is said to have pushed for immediate action, including calls for then Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment or face impeachment within a very short window. Schoen's takeaway? That everything moved so quickly because waiting might have changed the narrative. His claim is that urgency replaced deliberation, and that speed became part of the strategy. He even echoes a line attributed to Tom Cole, arguing that moments like this didn't heal divisions, they deepened them. Now, here's where it gets real, and where you come in. Do you think that montage was a turning point? Did it expose a larger pattern, or was it selectively framed to make a point? Because depending on how you see it, this is either a powerful case about process and fairness, or a highly charged political interpretation of complex events. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take. And if you're tired of the back and forth and double standards in Washington, you already know what to do. Stay tuned, stay loud, and stay engaged.